Lewis Hamilton has actually come out and said that that Mercedes W14 might be a full 1.5 seconds slower than the RB19 on race pace. And he might just be right. Both those Mercedes drivers have come out talking to the media, and a lot has been said on that Mercedes car, and specifically it seems like a decision has been made on the direction that it's going to be taken for the rest of the season. Looking back to Bahrain though, this is what Lewis had to say. I think in the race they weren't pushing, so I think they're a lot quicker than they even seemed. We have them being 1.5 seconds faster in the race per lap. And well, he's not wrong. Max was instructed by his race engineer to tone down his pace pretty early on, and if he had to, he could definitely have gone quicker. That's pretty worrying for the other teams, considering even when he was managing his pace, he was still 1 second a lap quicker than anyone else. Their gap isn't as big during qualifying, so over a lap the gap is actually a lot smaller, but the Red Bull's able to manage its tyres and performance in a race much better than Mercedes and Ferrari can. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about this W14 before Bahrain and after Bahrain as well, from the drivers and Toto Wolff. And it seems like a decision has now been made. They talked a lot about making big decisions, bold decisions, and it seems like those decisions have been made. George Russell had a lot to say. This is what he said. We all came together and had some very good, honest, open conversations. A lot of the questions were answered as to how we got ourselves in this position in the first place. Plus, what are we going to do in the short term and medium term to get out of it? What path do we want to be on? Those changes are already in place of getting on the track that we believe is going to bring us back to victory. He then went on to specifically mention a concept. We know a change of concept doesn't come without risks, but I think we all feel like we've got enough knowledge and information now to say that we weren't on the right tracks, and the targets that we set over the winter weren't the right ones. We need to change lanes as soon as possible. Those decisions have already been made, and we've already started working towards them as of probably Tuesday last week. How quickly that can be brought to the car, how quickly that's going to translate into performance, is another question. This pretty much confirms to me that Mercedes have decided they will go in a different direction with their car going forward, and I would expect to see something more in line with the other cars on the grid towards the end of the season if we're lucky, but likely at the beginning of next season. There's no real word though on if that means the planned upgrades for Imola will still come or if they've been canned. George did go on to say a few other interesting things as well, specifically about the 2023 car and the fact that they'd been a little bit too safe. He said this: "When you look at the W13, we were clearly too aggressive with the car design and the bouncing. That was our big limitation. Now, fast forward 12 months, we want to be in a position where we weren't experiencing any of this, and we've probably equally overshot in the opposite direction. Compromised too much performance, too much downforce for the lack of bouncing. We learned that probably the changes that the FIA implemented over the winter solved the majority of our problems. That being said, we can probably recover some of that lost performance from being too conservative. Is it the 1 second we're looking for compared to Red Bull? No, it's not. Do we think we're on the right track with our philosophy? Probably not either." There was a small technical change from last season with the FIA mandating a rise in the floor edge by 15mm. George thinks that perhaps this solved some of the Mercedes issues, but they clearly changed something on the car and maybe overcompensated. Interestingly, he also says that perhaps the team got a bit ahead of themselves after winning in Brazil, thinking maybe they'd made bigger strides than perhaps they actually had. We've now had the first practice session for the Jeddah Gand Prix that's taking place this weekend, and it's not looking great for a competitive race. It seems to me like Red Bull are going to run away with it again. You can't read too much into the times from FP1 because it's not a representative session. It actually takes place at a different time to qualifying and the race. Even still, that Red Bull looks like it's on rails. Mercedes, on the other hand, Lewis is complaining of a lack of grip, and Ferrari didn't seem to get a representative time in either, so it's hard to know where they stand. Although Charles Leclerc has already got a 10-place grid penalty on Sunday, so it's not exactly great. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I very much hope that the Saudi race is good this weekend as well. If you did enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.